Hey, welcome to another episode of Culture Cast with host Dustin Homan. Dustin Homan today is going to be talking with Emma Mendez. She is a agriculture natural resource educator with Purdue University, and she's going to be talking about her study abroad in Vietnam. So stay tuned. Hey, welcome to another episode of Culture Cast. Dustin, I keep on telling you this, but this is my favorite show. You really bring a lot of depth and understanding about the world around us.
Thank you, Patrick. And to all of our viewers who are tuning in, I want to first and foremost say thank you. Thank you for joining us for the first time, or thank you for returning. And Patrick, I appreciate your comments. This is fun for me. It's a joy to be able to do this every month. And especially as we're recording this during the pandemic, it's just a kind of a nice way to forget about everything that's going on and immerse yourself in another culture, country, and most of the time also photos of weather that's much more beautiful than what I see outside my window. So thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you. And you have a really interesting guest who did a study abroad and working with the Agriculture Natural Resource Extension educators with Purdue University, Emma Mendez.
I did. And before I introduce Emma and ask her to tell us a little bit about herself, I want to do a quick recap of where we have been with Culture Cast the past few years and where we're going today. So looking back on where we've been with Culture Cast, to my viewers out there, to our viewers, we're on episode 32-ish. And as you look at this map, all the countries that are in green are countries that we have virtually visited through the Culture Cast, published through OSU South Centers. So where we will be going today is the country you see here in red, which is Vietnam. And my guest to tell us about Vietnam is Emma Mendez. She is my neighbor, essentially, from where I am posted here in Marion County, Indiana. So Emma, welcome, and thank you for being our guest today.
Awesome. Thank you for having me today.
Of course. Emma, tell the viewers a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and how did you end up in Extension?
Sure. So I actually grew up in Boone County, which is another neighboring county of Destin and I. There I was a 10-year member, very involved in livestock, very involved in the ag industry, and I knew I had a passion for ag. So Purdue was no question. I attended Purdue University and graduated in 2019 with an animal science degree. From there, Extension grew into my passion, and I knew I wanted to be an educator. So I currently am a master's student online with Colorado State University, hoping to graduate this coming May. So I'm very excited to get that done and over with. But recently, I was just hired here in Hamilton County as the Ag and Natural Resource Educator. Again, my passion for ag and my passion for educating the public about ag is why I'm here today. So all my experiences have led up into my career, which is my passion.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Emma, were you a past 4-H member?
I was, yeah. I was a 10-year member in Boone County. So
fabulous. And I know that you and I first met when you were working for 4-H in Hamilton County, and you were able to transition to the A&R or Ag and Natural Resources position. But I'm just really glad that you're still with us.
Yes.
You haven't departed. So Emma, let's get into the fun for today. We're going to be talking about Vietnam. And as we always do on our Culture Cast, we start with the flag of the country that we are going to be featuring. So this is the flag of the country of Vietnam. Again, Olympics are hopefully going to happen next year, 2021. So to our Culture Cast viewers, I would hope you would be very schooled on the different flags as they come out for the opening ceremony. thanks in part to our show. So again, this is the flag of Vietnam. Vietnam is a country that's located in Southern Asia. I think for many people, when you hear the word Vietnam, you may immediately think about the Vietnam War, which was something the US was involved with, but that was decades ago, and the country has prospered and developed, and we're going to see some of that from Emma's photos. The country is about the same size as the state of New Mexico, so a fairly large country. And it has a very large population, about 98.7 million people, which is about 3 times the population of the state of Texas. So, Emma, people are not here to listen to me. They want to hear from you. As we look at your first photo, start off by telling us, why did you choose to go to Vietnam?
So this actually was a brand new study abroad program that I held at Purdue University for the College of Ag. It took place in spring of 2018. And the instructor of the course, her name is Dr. Elizabeth Karcher. She actually came from Michigan State. And so that's where she originally started the study abroad. And then when she came down to Purdue as an instructor, she wanted to carry on this study abroad here. So I actually had her as an instructor previously, and she was very excited to start this course here. Also, a very cool fact, we were paired up with Ag and Natural Resource Extension educators for this trip. So we had 5 educators come on this trip with us and experience the culture, the food, and learn about the history as well. So this was brand new at Purdue University, brand new course, brand new for bringing in extension educators. This was the first time they've ever had Ag and Natural Resource educators come on a study abroad like this. So to me, it was very intriguing. I knew extension was a career I wanted to pursue. So I thought, why not this trip?
Yeah.
I've been to over 12 countries, but I've never been anywhere in Asia. So I definitely had to get this one to be checked off the list.
So tell us a little bit about how you dressed for Vietnam. What's the climate like?
We were in the city, so for the most part, it was pretty hot, very humid. There were days where I think I started out in the morning in a sweatshirt, and then by maybe 9:30, I was already sweating walking down the street. People there are used to it. I was not used to it. The climate itself is very pretty, though, always sunny. It did rain. It almost reminds me a little bit of Florida. So if you've ever been down to Florida before, the climate almost reminded me of that.
So how does it, I guess the real question then is, how does it compare to a Midwest summer?
Ooh, I don't know. I think we might beat humidity here. It's humid,
Okay.
but it's not as intense here sometimes.
So what I heard you say, more of a tropical climate, and I think
Yes.
you kind of glean that from this photo. I see in the background what looks like a palm tree, which wouldn't grow here in Indiana, but in a tropical climate. So this was a photo that you had taken from in the rural part of Vietnam.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit more about what they're farming and what they're growing in this part of the country.
So a big staple in the country itself is rice. And the cool thing about this study abroad, we actually partnered with a university from there that is also known as kind of their College of Ag within the country. So when you think of Indiana, you think of Purdue University for agriculture, but the university we partnered with in Vietnam was their College of Agriculture. So while here we went to their university, we were able to see breeding rice. So this picture in front of you is actually at one of their research farms, where we learned a little bit about what they're using to breed their rice with and how they're focusing on improving the quality.
Did they show you, or do you know how the rice is both planted and then harvested?
We only saw the fields like this where they were flooded. So this was getting towards the end. But it was pretty neat when we were out in the country, we were able to see them hand sowing it. In Indiana, you're used to seeing tractors, combines, a lot of machinery, but out there, it's people. It's people doing it by hand. And that was pretty cool to see. We saw oxes, we saw mules. So that was a cool experience to witness that, still out in another country, they're doing it by hand.
Wow. So continue to tell us a little bit more about some of the different products that they grow there.
Sure. So, like I said, rice is one of their huge staple products. They have a lot of different exotic fruits, lots of greenery, especially in this picture. They have a lot of community gardens. So, for this study abroad, we did a couple days in the main city of Hanoi, and then we spent 2 days out in the mountains. So, out in the mountains is where you're typically going to find most of your rural farming communities, and a lot of them will have community gardens in certain areas. You can see in the background, that's actually rice fields that they flood with the help of the river and the ditches. So with their community garden area, they like to keep them higher up, and they only have certain areas for their community gardens.
Tell us a little bit about what the culture was like in terms of the people. So let's start off by telling our viewers, what was the language like there, and was there a barrier?
So their language is Vietnamese. And for the most part, we actually had no trouble with language. A lot of them, when they knew we were English speaking, they loved practicing their English with us. So I thought that was really cool. Once they knew we were speaking English, we had a lot of locals coming up and just trying to practice English with us. So I thought that was really neat. Again, we were in a huge city of Hanoi, and we had no trouble going out to restaurants, no trouble with students, especially from the university. Their English was very good, very good.
Interesting. I don't think I would have expected that. Although, Emma, on some of our other culture casts, it's been interesting to hear people say similar things to you, that they go to other countries and want to, like, some of them want to speak the language and learn the language, but those
Yes.
people in that country want to learn English.
Yep.
So with you being there, they'd rather speak in English. But
Yeah, it was awesome. I will say, I think the farming community was probably the largest barrier, just because out there weren't as many English speakers. So at that point in time, we did have translators with us and helping. We stayed with a host family, so they knew a little bit of English just to get by. But for the most part, the city was very well English spoken.
Okay. We've seen, as we talk about farm to fork, we've seen the farm piece of it. So tell us how food gets from here to the people.
Sure. So the mountains that were in the previous picture, that's where a lot of their farming is. And then the cool thing, they have a lot of motorcycles with baskets that they have on the front. So what you saw out in the farms is what they bring into the cities. I was amazed at how many of these bikes had just pounds of produce on the back, on the front. Some of them have carts full of chickens that they were bringing in from the farms into the city. A lot of it wasn't technically grown in the city. There might have been some areas where there were some growing communities, but a lot of their produce that they have in the city will come outside from the local farms and the local rural areas.
Okay.
But every morning they have these huge markets that you can go to starting at midnight. That was pretty cool. We went at 1 a.m, and that was the busiest time for their markets, of where they start bringing in fresh produce to sell. So that was awesome to witness, that even at the early hours of the morning, that's some of the busiest that restaurant owners will come out and pick their produce for the day.
When you say busiest, does that mean there were customers purchasing food at that time?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, the markets were packed. There were people out there buying food. I mean, as a class, we had to squeeze in between aisles. People were pushing carts back and forth. It was pretty awesome. It was a cool thing to witness.
It seems like the Vietnam version of our Black Friday.
Yes,
right?
every day.
Except every day, yeah.
Yes.
So you've shared these photos with us of the produce in the market, and before we started our recording, it was fun to try to identify some of these different things in there. So maybe tell the viewers a little bit about some of the fruits and vegetables that you recognize that you can buy here at the US, and then maybe some that we couldn't.
Sure. So in this picture, you can see some onions, some peppers, some carrots. They have a lot of sweet potatoes, corn, rice, cassavana. That's another big popular item that they have. Again, I mentioned Vietnam has a lot of cool exotic fruit. So one of them that I was able to try is called Roboten. And it almost looks like, it's like a little messy hair. I don't know. It looks like a cherry with a bunch of spikes on it. And you peel it, and in the middle, it looks like a grape. It's pretty cool. They have things called star fruit, which They're obviously shaped like a star. That was very cool to witness. They have dragon fruit. So a lot of exotic fruits that I've never heard of, but I was able to try while I was visiting in Vietnam.
So as we're talking about the trying piece, getting closer to that fork portion of the farm to fork, tell us a little bit about some of the dishes that you not only ate, but helped prepared, right?
Yes. While on the study abroad, we were able to take a cooking course of learning how to make our own spring rolls. So we had prawns that were already pre-cooked. We had some pork belly. We had carrots and zucchini, and then we had fresh greens. And for this course, we actually had a chef come in and teach us how to do it properly. It was really cool to actually, we went to the market to pick out some of our produce, and we were able to come back, and then he taught us how to do the spring rolls. So that was a cool cooking class.
Did any of this stick? Did you come home and make it?
I think I made a couple actually.
Okay.
I made a couple when I came back home. It's hard to find the ingredients here, but I think I did. It's been a couple of years.
So tell us about this dish, Emma.
So this is called pho, and this is probably their most common food item you will ever find in Vietnam. You can find it serving on the streets, you can find it serving in high-end restaurants, or just your typical restaurant. And pho, it's pretty much just noodles with broth, a little bit of either steak or pork. You have some green onions in it, and you can add vegetables if you'd like, and it's delicious. It looks very simple, but it is probably some of the best soup I've ever, it kind of is soup, but probably the best I've ever had is pho from Vietnam.
And I feel like this is a dish that you can find here in the US too. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
Some restaurants do serve pho. There's actually one on campus, near Purdue's campus, where they serve pho to the Vietnamese students. So I tried it there, and I was like, oh, this is very similar.
We're recording this on a day that there's still snow outside, and this just seems like the perfect lunch to complement that kind of weather too.
Yes, very good.
So everything up till now has been kind of normal, and then you put this photo in your album for us. What's going on here?
So this is a dish that is considered not a delicacy, but very common in Vietnam, and it's fried chicken feet. And I was the one student who was brave enough to order it and try it. This is actually a good picture of me right before taking a bite, which I was not a huge fan. As soon as I took a bite, I thought about my chickens at home, and it did not sit well with me. It was too crunchy for me. It was too crunchy.
It is nice to see they're using all parts of the animal.
Yes.
So, but was there meat on this? Or what did you eat when you actually did it?
Not exactly. I think people there like to enjoy eating the fried skin of the foot, as gross as that sounds. Ironically, that day, I remember we visited a poultry farm, of course, and just trying it, I said, nope, I can't do it. So the plate, I believe we actually ended up giving to another local who was sitting at the restaurant who want to eat it. So it did not go to waste, though.
You also included some drinks in this photo.
Yes.
So tell us about the options there.
Yeah, so they actually have a lot of non-alcoholic beers, which is one you'll see in the photo. And then they have a lot of pop options. So, but it's not our typical cans you think of. They're the tall, skinny ones. It's easier to compact to transport. So they had a lot of orange Fantas. Surprisingly, that was a very popular soda that they had there. So that's me having my Fanta, my non-alcoholic beer, and trying chicken foot. That probably was not the best dish I had in Vietnam, or drink selection with my dish, but I think I had noodles as the other part of my meal, which were pretty good.
I feel like this would be a fun way when you came back to summarize your trip with people as a funny
Yes.
joke, right? Like
This is the good photo. The other photo I have is me making a horrible face and spitting out the chicken foot. So
we appreciate you did not share that one with us.
yeah.
So Emma, we've talked a little bit about the agriculture, and actually before we get into this photo, what other industries did you see when you were in Vietnam besides agriculture?
Sure. So Vietnam is actually a huge exporter of electronics and electrical products. A lot of the areas we passed in the main part of Hanoi were huge industries where they were just making so many manufacturing products to be shipped out all around the world, including China. They export a lot to China. They also export a lot of textiles. So North Face, if you guys ever wear a lot of North Face, if you look at the tag, it probably will say made in Vietnam. So it's pretty cool because there were a lot of places that sold North Face for just a cheaper price, just because, you know, you're not paying for the fee of it coming halfway around the world. So a lot of my study abroad, I think we all left with a North Face jacket.
I'm glad to hear you were being frugal.
Yes.
In your purchases. So also, we talked a little bit about language earlier, and I wanted to, at that time, I forgot to follow up with you and ask, tell us a little bit about just the culture. I mean, how did you feel there? Did you feel safe? What was it like?
As a girl, I felt very comfortable. Many times I didn't feel uncomfortable at all. There were some parts. So for instance, this photo, this is in the old part of Hanoi. Hanoi is a huge city in Vietnam, and it's actually split into two parts. You have the new Hanoi and you have the old Hanoi. And old Hanoi, historically, that's where older generations will live. And because of our past America with Vietnam, there were some instances where, you know, maybe we didn't feel the most comfortable, especially in a market setting. There were times where our instructor told us, okay, let's move along. We don't need to be here anymore. Taking pictures, I will say taking pictures, sometimes you have to ask. Sometimes people don't want to be in the background of your photo. Sometimes people don't want their pictures to be taken of their products. So you just have to be aware of your surroundings, and you just have to be polite because sometimes they're okay with being in the photo or taking a picture.
And continue to tell us a little bit more about that old Hanoi part by what we see here in the photo.
Yeah, so this is part of Old Hanoi. This is a park located in the area of Old Hanoi. And Old Hanoi was back with the dynasties. I mean, this goes way back. And it's an awesome because they preserved a lot of their history. And so a lot of this area has been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, which is pretty cool to walk through an archway knowing that it's been around for so long, even older than when America was even established. So that was pretty cool. That was a cool part of visiting the older part of the city and seeing the locals who still live in that area and use the buildings like that.
And I think you mentioned this earlier, but just as a reminder to our viewers, Hanoi, that Emma's talking about, is the capital of the country of Vietnam. And it's also, I was doing a little bit of research, it is a communist country. And Emma, I think for some of us, when we hear the word communist, maybe it brings up negative connotations, but did you get those negative vibes or negative connotations at all when you were there?
Not too much. I probably would say the most would be in the older part of the city.
Okay.
As well as maybe a little bit in the rural parts of the farming community, just because the people out there, they're not as well spoken with English. They don't have necessarily as much interest in learning about Americans like some of the newer parts of the city. So it just depends on what region you're at.
Sure.
I would say Buddhism is very big there too.
Okay. And I think
this is kind of funny, but one of our A&R educators there, they started rubbing on his belly because they thought he was Buddha. Yeah, he didn't know what to do, so he let it happen.
I was going to say, are you honored by that, or does that make you self-conscious?
I'm not sure if he was honored, but he didn't know what to do. So they just rubbed his belly and said, "You remind us of Buddha." So
Oh, that's great. But well, I appreciate you sharing that kind of real perspective about the country, Emma. And I think it's important to remind our viewers too that as you're talking about these different regions and different kinds of people, the same thing can be said about the U.S. too, right? That there are groups in our own country who are not as open and willing to interact with other cultures. And so, I think we could expect to see that in other countries around the world as well, because we have it in our own backyard. But Emma, as we're wrapping up our time together, I want you, first of all, tell us what's in this photo.
So this is actually another photo of the park, just in a different area where they have a water area. This is the cool thing. They had so many water exhibits within the city of Hanoi, and I thought that was really cool. It shows the history that, they're always using their natural landscape to enhance the environment. And it's very peaceful, very quiet. I felt very at peace in this park. People come here to meditate and to just relax and take in the views. And even though the city is right outside, you just seem like it's in a different world when you're in the park. So it was a very cool experience.
I think this is a great photo for us to end on. The last question I always ask our guest, Emma, is share with our viewers, why should they visit Vietnam?
Definitely the people. I know I said, there are some parts of the country where you might not feel as comfortable, but for the most part, I have made so many friends just within 1 week of visiting. And it's the people. They love learning about new cultures. They love learning about English if you speak English. They love to stay in contact with you via social media 2 years later. And I still, every now and then, I will get a message from some of my friends that I met over there for just knowing them for only 1 week. They are extremely sweet, very caring people. Our host family was so welcoming, made sure we had everything we needed, went above and beyond. And just their history, they love to teach others about their culture, their history, why Vietnam, and what our country can export and import. And overall, it was just a really cool experience.
So if you had the chance, would you go back?
Oh, definitely. Definitely for the pho.
So Patrick and I always joke, at the end of almost every Culture Cast, we are ready to go back with you. So if you ever need people to just carry your baggage, we're here.
Definitely.
That is so true, because as Dustin brings out many of the different cultures, etc., there's a lot of unique things that you sort of miss. We unfortunately are only we can only see what the media shows us. Mm-hmm. And the nice thing is when you go there and you explain some of the things, there's a lot of neat things to see.
Exactly. And Emma, thank you for your time today. Thank you for sharing these photos and sharing your story, most of all. That's the whole purpose of this podcast, is like Patrick said, we want to hear the story behind all these beautiful photos. And it's just always encouraging to hear people say they want to go back or they want to travel to other places. So Patrick, it sounds like we're going to have Emma back.
Yes.
12 countries, Emma?
Yes, and counting. It's put on hold right now.
We could do a whole year of just Emma. Well, I want to thank you again, Emma, and Patrick and Sarah behind the scenes. Thank you for producing and putting this together. And to all of our viewers out there, thank you for tuning in, whether it's your first time or your 32nd time. And we hope that you will join us next month as we explore another part of this big, beautiful, wonderful world that we live in. Take care.